Okay, a little bit of technical difficulties, running a few minutes late. Okay, let's get right into it. Thank you everyone for joining. If you'd like to sponsor a class, sponsorships are available. We appreciate that. If you want to comment, we appreciate comments. Helps us keep these classes going when we get sponsorships. It helps keep people engaged when we get comments. Okay, let's jump into it. This week's Torah portion is actually a double Torah portion, Achrei Mos and Kedoshim. And this week's Parsha opens up after the passing of the sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu. The Torah tells us in Leviticus chapter, I believe it's 10. Yep, chapter 10, verses 1 and 2, as follows. Aaron's sons, Nadav and Avihu, each took their pan, put fire in it, placed incense upon it, and they brought it before God, a foreign fire, which he had not commanded them. The fire went forth from before God and consumed them, and they died before God. That is what it says back in chapter 10. This week's Torah portion starts in chapter 16, and says as follows. God spoke to Moses after the death of Aaron's two sons when they drew near before God, and they died. God said to Moses, "Speak to your brother Aaron, and instruct him that he should not come at all times into the sanctuary within the dividing curtain, in front of the cover that is upon the ark, so he should not die, for I appear over the ark cover in a cloud." So we see that there's this juxtaposition between the commandment about not coming at any time to the death of Aaron's sons, which implies that they did not come at the right time. So, in other words, they should not have gone into the Holy of Holies without permission, without being invited, if you will. So let's actually look in the Medrash. The Medrash tells us 4 reasons why the sons of Aaron died. Number 1, the first thing is the offering itself. Okay, they were not commanded to bring the offering. Number 2, they entered inside to the Holy of Holies, again, not in the proper time. Again, the Kohen Gadol, which that would be Aaron, not his sons, he enters only once a year on Yom Kippur. Number 3, they were not wearing the proper priestly garb. And number 4, they did not they were childless. They didn't have children. And Abba Chanin says, the Medrash springs of Abba Chanin says, a 5th reason, they were not married. Okay? That's their sin. So now, let's talk a little bit about what Hasidic thought discusses this idea. So, the Medrash tells us, our sages tell us, it's actually brought by Rashi from the Medrash, it's also brought in the Talmud, that Aaron's sons actually were very holy. And he says that they the Talmud says as follows: that Moses says to Aaron, my brother, I see that they Nadav and Avihu are greater than me and you. So that puts a whole different spin on this whole thing. We just said, the Torah tells us that they died because of what they did. We just went through the Medrash tells us 4 or 5 reasons what they did wrong. And now you're telling me that actually, that the Talmud says in a different place that they were greater than Moses and Aaron themselves. So what is going on over here? So Hasidic thought discusses this idea that actually the thing that they made, the mistake that they made, was that they were too close to God. God gave us a mission in this world. Our mission in this world is to make this world a better place by taking the things in this world, the physical, the material, and making it holy. And that's the whole experiment, if you will, of the Mishkan, right? We take these physical things and we're making it holy. That's the whole idea of Mount Sinai and the whole process that God gave us. And now, but they decided that they're not going to listen to that mission. They felt they were so in touch with their soul naturally wants to be connected to the Creator. So they said, let's just be close to Hashem. It doesn't matter, I don't care about this mission, about the Mishkan, about the Jewish people in the land of Israel, and getting married and having children, all these things, wasn't for me. They said, we have to be close to God. And that's why it says in the verse that 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 basically that they just died, not without trying to, they weren't trying to bring the spirituality into this world. They just wanted to die. They wanted to be, their soul be reconnected to God. And they went to this higher level without the proper garments. In other words, without the proper way to bring it down. A garment is how you interact with someone. You wear special garments when you go to the king, right? They're going to God, so they need garments. That's how you're going to accept and receive the king in a proper way. But they didn't do that. They didn't get married. They didn't have children. It was all about spirituality. They didn't want to engage in this world. Okay. Now, that's a very spiritual answer explaining, but at the end of the day, we know that the Medrash and the Torah is to be taken literally as well. So obviously they did do something wrong, and not just in the spiritual sense that they didn't engage in materialism and they want to be holy, but on a very basic level, they didn't get married. So if we're going to go down and explain this idea, we're going to look in the Talmud about a different rabbi who didn't get married. There's a rabbi, his name was Shimon Ben Azai. He was called Ben Azai because at that era there were many rabbis named Shimon. So he was called Ben Azai, and he did not get married. So let's read the Talmud, Tractate Yevamos, page 62a. Rabbi Asi taught, Mashiach will only arrive once all the souls have been born into bodies, as it says, for the spirit that enwraps itself is from me and the souls that I have made. So Rabbi Asi says that until every single child that has to be born is born, Mashiach is not going to come. Rabbi Yaakov says, it is as though he diminishes the divine image, as it is said, as it is stated, for the image of God he made man, for it is written immediately afterwards, and you be fruitful and multiply. So Rabbi Yaakov implied that if you don't get married, that he implied it from the verse that it says that God made us in His image, and then it says, and then go have children. So if you don't have children, then you're diminishing God's image. Ben Azai says, he continues, it is as though he sheds blood and also diminishes the divine image, as it says, you should be fruitful and multiply. In the verse that alludes to both shedding blood and divine image, and the divine image. So we see that that because of the juxtaposition of these verses, that it's not only that it's that you're going against God, so to speak, you're also, it's like considered like you're shedding blood. So the rabbi said to Ben Azai, there's a type of scholar who expounds well and fulfills his own teachings well, and another who fulfills well but does not explain it well. But you have never married, you expound well on the importance of procreation, and you do not fulfill your own teachings well. So the rabbi said, critical Ben Azai, how can you say that it's like shedding blood when you are not able to, when you yourself decide not to get married? Ben Azai said to them, what shall I do, as my soul yearns for Torah, and I do not wish to do with anything else? The world can be maintained by others who are engaged in the mitzvah to be fruitful and multiply. So Ben Azai said, it's very nice, I can't do it. My soul thirsts for Torah, and I only want to study Torah. I don't want to do anything else. He doesn't want to make a living, doesn't want to be married, doesn't want to have children. So so we see this idea of another rabbi, obviously in a much later time, who wanted, also similar idea, didn't want to get married. So how do we balance, what is this teaching us, and what is the balance that we're trying to find over here? Let's go to Isaiah, chapter 45. For so said the Lord, the creator of heaven, who is God, who formed the earth and made it. He established it. He did not create it for a waste. He formed it to be inhabited. For I am the Lord and there is no other. Right? So God tells us that He created the world to become inhabited. Right? What does that mean? The Radak is an explanation on the books of the prophets. He says as follows. He established it. He designed it for creatures to procreate, as He commanded, be fruitful and multiply. God did not create the world for a waste. Without people and animals, He wanted inhabitants. Okay, so what do we see from this? When a person, the sons of Aaron, that they entered into the innermost sanctuary. However, we see that the Torah tells us that the Kohen Gadol in Yom Kippur, it says that the Torah tells us that he shall atone for the Jewish people and for his house. And the rabbis explain what does it mean his house? That refers to his wife. That the Kohen Gadol, who goes into the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur has to be married. Specifically has to be married. And there's even opinion, as we'll see in a second, that you have to be so certain that he's married that you have to make sure he has a second wife. Let's see in the Mishnah Yoma, which is the tractate that discusses the service on Yom Kippur. Starts Mishnah Yoma 101, first Mishnah. 7 days prior to Yom Kippur, the sages remove the high priest, who performs the entire Yom Kippur service, from his house to the chamber of the Panhedrin. It's a special chamber in the temple, a room in the temple designated specifically for the high priest during that period. They would also designate another priest in his stead to replace him, lest a disqualification due to impurity or another circumstance beyond his control prevent him from entering the temple on Yom Kippur. So we have a backup Kohen Gadol in case the Kohen Gadol becomes impure. We need to make sure the service can only be done by the Kohen Gadol. So we have a backup. Rabbi Yehuda says the sages would even designate another wife for him, lest his wife die. The verse in the Torah portion of the Yom Kippur service states, that's in this week's Torah portion, and it will atone for him in his house, Leviticus 16:6. The sages interpreted the term his house as reference to his wife. The priest must be married to fulfill this commandment. Due to the concern lest his wife die, another wife was designated to address that possibility. Okay, so we have a backup Kohen Gadol, and we have a backup wife for the Kohen Gadol in case the Kohen Gadol's wife would pass away before Yom Kippur. They had a backup wife ready. The Rabbi said to Rabbi Yehuda, if this is indeed a concern, there is no end to the matter. And what if the designated replacement wife dies? This possibility need not be a source of concern. So the rabbis have a debate. Rabbi Yehuda says they would have a backup wife. The rabbi said that's pushing it too far. We have a backup Kohen Gadol. That's good enough. We can't anticipate every possibility. But what we see here is the importance of the Kohen Gadol, who's going to the holiest place in the world on the holiest day. And he has to be married. So what we see here, first of all, we learn a special, really important lesson for Jewish women and their place in Jewish life, is that if the Kohen Gadol is to do the holiest things on Yom Kippur and the Holy of Holies, if he doesn't have his wife, then it's considered an act of chaos instead of an act of building. Right? Just like what Nadav and Avihu did. They didn't have a wife to ground them. They made a huge mistake. The Kohen Gadol needs a woman to give him order and to order his home. That's what makes him have a home, have a place in this world. Now, we talked before how the whole point of this the whole idea of the sons of Aaron is that they wanted to be close to God, but they didn't want to bring godliness into the world. They didn't care about that. They didn't care about the mission. And really, this is what the woman does, is that this Kohen Gadol, he's engaging in holiness. But if it's not going to come back into his house, if he's not going to have a wife who's going to ground him, then it's not going to. Then it is just like Nadav and Avihu, just like the two sons of Aaron. It's just like they're being close to God, but what about the mission to bring godliness into this world? So there has to be both. And now, obviously, nowadays, we don't have the Holy of Holies. We don't have the Kohen Gadol. But this lesson is very important for Jewish life, in that there's different roles that the man has than a woman has, and this is exactly the difference between the man and the woman. The man, sometimes he is going to be involved in, let's say, going to synagogue for a minyan. Now, the wife's job is to make sure that he's able to do that he's able to go to that holy place. However, when the woman stays home and is taking care of the house, while the man is in shul, it's important for the man to recognize that his wife is the one who gave him that ability, and it's important for the man to realize that he has to now bring that holiness back to his home, and he can't just be like, well, taking a break, I get a few minutes, I get to go to synagogue and avoid life. That is not what it's about. It's exactly the opposite. Just like the Kohen Gadol, he has to be married. He has to have a home life, and that's what makes his entry into the Holy of Holies an act of building and not an act of destruction. The same thing when it goes to when in Jewish life, when the man is going to synagogue and the woman is staying home, which many times is the case, it's the man's job to recognize that he has to now bring that holiness back to his home. That he has to. So that means it can't come from a place of resentment. He has to come in a place, in a way of peace, in a way of bringing this holiness that he's experiencing in synagogue, or with his study sessions, or whatever else holy things that he's involved with. He has to bring that home in a way that will, so there's this balancing. So on one hand, the wife has to let the husband go and let him do the holy thing, and he has to recognize that's what it comes from. That he has to bring it home. He has to make sure that the impact of when he comes home, it's not in a way of, well, I got a few minutes, oh, now I'm back to regular life, back to the grind. That's not a way of holiness. That you have to now bring this holiness into your house, and you have to be a little bit different, a little bit holier now that you came home from synagogue. And the wife, again, this is this balance, this back and forth. You have to find this balance of the husband is going home and bringing this holiness home, and the wife is allowing the husband to go get this holiness, and the two have to be coexistent. So we see here how important it is. And this is general life. This isn't just in a way, and when it comes to marriage, but in all things, that there has to be this balance of, yes, I'm engaging in holiness, but how do I bring that into my day to day life? Not just the time when I'm in synagogue, the time that I'm studying, but how is that going to affect the rest of my day? How is and the rest of my day? How am I going to find the time to do the holy things? You got to find this balance. It's not about, because again, we have a mission in this world from God, is to bring holiness into this world, and not like the two sons of Aaron who just wanted to be holy because they were so in touch with the soul that they just felt this yearning to God, or like the rabbi in the Talmud, Ben Azai, who just felt this yearning to God that he couldn't even fathom having a family life. And that is not the job for everybody. And even as Ben Azai himself said, that's not everybody's job. So it's important for us to recognize that we all have a job in this world, and it's to bring holiness into this world. And it's not enough that it's not enough that we engage in holy things, but we have to engage in holy things in a way that changes us, that makes a difference in our day to day lives. Thank you very much for joining. Have a good Shabbos, and God willing, we will see you next week.